Middlesex by Eugenides, a multi-generational epic of identity and transformation. Eugenides' Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Middlesex, 2002, is a sweeping, ambitious, and genre-blending work that delves into complex themes of identity, gender, heritage, and transformation. Told through the unique voice of Cal Stephanides, born Calliope, a hermaphroditic Greek-American raised as a girl but who later discovers his male identity, the novel is both intensely personal and broadly historical. Middlesex navigates through nearly a century of Greek and American history, weaving family saga, immigrant experience, genetic inheritance, and gender identity into one cohesive narrative. The novel is as much about becoming as it is about belonging, an exploration of how identity is formed through a combination of biology, culture, and personal choice. The narrator, Cal Stephanides, begins the story with the memorable line, "I was born twice, first as a baby girl on a remarkably smogless Detroit day in January of 1960, and then again as a teenage boy in an emergency room near Petoskey, Michigan, in August of 1974. This dual birth sets the tone for the novel, which continually shifts between past and present, between personal introspection and grand historical tableau. Cal, now in his 40s, tells the story from Berlin, where he works as a diplomat, casting a retrospective and often ironic gaze on the events that led to his current identity. The novel is divided into three main parts. The first part details the lives of Cal's grandparents, Lefty and Desdemona, Greek immigrants who flee the burning city of Smyrna in 1922 and settle in Detroit. Their decision to marry each other, despite being siblings, sets in motion a genetic chain reaction that eventually leads to Cal's intersex condition. The second part focuses on Cal's parents, Milton and Tessie, and the family's assimilation into American culture during the mid-20th century. The final part concentrates on Cal's childhood and adolescence as Calliope, her discovery of her intersex condition, and her transformation into Cal. This multi-generational format allows Eugenides to examine the intersections of personal identity and historical forces. From the Greco-Turkish War to Prohibition-era Detroit, from the rise of the Nation of Islam to the 1967 Detroit race riots, Middlesex presents identity not as a static quality, but as something shaped by historical currents and familial choices. Themes of gender and identity. At its core, Middlesex is a meditation on gender, how it is defined, enforced, experienced, and transcended. Calliope is raised as a girl, but her body doesn't fit neatly into either male or female categories. Her discovery that she is intersex and the ensuing decision to live as Cal is both traumatic and liberating. Eugenides treats this subject matter with deep sensitivity and avoids sensationalism. Rather than portraying Cal's condition as a medical anomaly, the novel explores how gender identity is constructed socially, culturally, and biologically. Cal's experience is profoundly shaped by how others perceive him, first as an unusual girl, later as a confusing adolescent, and eventually as a self-determined man. His rejection of a surgeon's proposal to perform sex reassignment surgery in favor of choosing his male identity is a significant act of agency. Eugenides uses this moment to underscore the importance of self-definition in a world eager to categorize. What sets Middlesex apart from many narratives about intersex or transgender individuals is the way it contextualizes Cal's journey within the larger story of his family and ethnicity. Eugenides suggests that identity cannot be disentangled from family, history, and community. Cal's gender transformation is just one part of a broader metamorphosis that echoes the immigrant journey, adapting, passing, hiding, revealing. The role of genetics and inheritance. Genetics plays a central role in Middlesex, but it is not treated merely as a scientific determinant. Instead, Eugenides presents genes as part of the novel's mythology, almost like a Greek tragedy unfolding through bloodlines. The fateful gene that causes Cal's intersex condition is passed down from his grandparents' incestuous union. The novel often anthropomorphizes the gene, treating it almost as a character, one that travels silently through generations, waiting to reveal itself. This genetic legacy is not portrayed as a punishment or curse, but as a symbol of the intricate, often unknowable ways in which the past influences the present. Eugenides refuses to make moral judgments about Lefty and Desdemona's relationship, instead portraying it as a product of trauma, exile, and isolation. Their decision, while taboo, is humanized rather than demonized. By blending myth, biology, and history, Eugenides creates a narrative that defies the simplistic binary of nature versus nurture. In Middlesex, genes carry stories, not just traits. They are part of a cultural narrative, not merely a biological blueprint. Immigration and the American Dream. Parallel to the theme of gender is the novel's exploration of immigration and assimilation. The Stephanides family's journey from Asia Minor to Detroit is emblematic of the American immigrant experience. Like many immigrants, they are forced to reinvent themselves in a new land, changing languages, customs, and even names. Their identity is constantly in flux, echoing Cal's own transformation. Milton Stephanides, Cal's father, is an embodiment of the self-made man, rising from modest beginnings to own a successful hot dog business. However, his pursuit of the American dream comes at a cost. He is haunted by social conformity, racial prejudices, and ultimately a rigid sense of honor that leads to his downfall. Detroit itself becomes a character in the novel, once a symbol of American industrial power and ethnic diversity, later a site of racial tension and economic decay. The 1967 Detroit riots serve as a turning point in the novel, a moment when the illusion of American stability collapses. This backdrop reinforces the idea that identity, like cities, can be built and destroyed, transformed by the forces of history. Symbolism and literary style. Eugenides' writing in Middlesex is rich, lyrical, and often playful. The novel brims with metaphors, classical allusions, and sly humor. The title itself is multi-layered. Middlesex refers not only to the intersex condition, but also to the middle space between binaries: male-female, Greek-American, past-present, science, myth, belonging, alienation. The narrative is self-aware and metafictional, with Cal frequently breaking the fourth wall to comment on his storytelling process. This voice is both intimate and authoritative, drawing readers into a tale that is as much about narration as it is about the narrated. There are recurring motifs: silkworms, hermaphrodites, houses with secrets, that lend the novel a mythical resonance. Eugenides borrows from classical literature, especially Greek tragedy, to frame Cal's journey as an odyssey of self-discovery. This literary layering adds depth to what is already a deeply moving story. Conclusion: a modern epic of becoming. Middlesex is a rare novel that manages to be epic and intimate, tragic and comic, historical and personal. Through the lens of one intersex individual's life, Eugenides explores the broader questions of identity, belonging, and transformation. The novel resists easy categorization, just as Cal resists being boxed into a gender binary. At its heart, Middlesex is about the courage it takes to define oneself in a world that demands clarity, certainty, and conformity. It is a story about living in the in-between spaces, between sexes, cultures, generations, and finding strength there. Through exquisite prose, masterful storytelling, and profound empathy, Eugenides has crafted a modern American classic that continues to resonate in a world increasingly attuned to the complexities of identity.